We'll be discussing the law and the politics in the aftermath of the court ruling that declared President Yoweri Museveni the duly elected president or president-elect 2016-2021. Let me begin with Nicholas Opio. Nicholas is sometimes also now referred to as amicus. He was the advocate. Nicholas is an advocate and he works with Chapter 4. Yeah. He was the lawyer for the civil society that filed an amicus application that wasn't successful to join in that. Nicholas, very nice to have you.
Well, thank you very much, Charles, and hello to my fellow panelists, and hello to the viewers at home. Good evening.
Let me introduce Hussein Rugaba Kashirinji. He was one of the lawyers, so he's part of the legal team of Yoweri Museveni. Very nice to have you.
Thank you, and good evening, viewers.
You had a team of how many people?
About 88.
88 people?
Yes.
Wow. And
some people were alleging that is the one who wrote the ruling. That's why they were, that's why there were typos.
There were many typos in the ruling?
I think I only saw the Chief Justice correct it only once.
And of course, Honor Peter Ekomloit is Corporate Affairs Director of Nile Breweries, SAB Miller. Honor, always a pleasure to be with you here.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening. Nice to meet Hussein after a while.
You used to work together instead?
Yeah, and he has been eating alone, so to say.
And this is my friend. I've been pitching for business, but he thinks I don't need it, but I do.
Yeah, he thinks you have enough business. All these petitions, all the defense work for candidate Yoweri Museveni and now President Yoweri Museveni.
It's all over. It's over.
I mean, I wonder when he has the time to do other business. I mean, his hands are full.
No.
So, Honor, please just pass on the business to a less busy lawyer.
We are political, so we want to give aid of it.
Let's start the discussion tonight with some rather sad news. Another round of clashes in Kasese district involving the cultural institution in Kasese and members of the security forces, particularly the Uganda People's Defense Forces. This evening, as we're preparing to come here, led to the death of at least 4 people. There could be a 5th dead. We're still trying to verify that, but what we know is out of those dead, 2 are members of the Uganda People's Defense Forces, and 2 are members of the Royal Protection Team of the cultural leader of the Rwenzururu, Charles Wesley Mumbere. What we know as of this evening, that there had been an initial internal clash. They still effort to find out exactly what sparked it off, and one of the guards shot someone inside the compound of the palace, and that clash, another person was injured, but shortly after, people moving on the outside met some UPDF soldiers, fired at them, killed 2 of them, and then the clash tended to escalate. But we do not know the details of what is happening in Kasese right now. The NTV will continue to keep you updated on what is going on. This is about the 4th clash between around that belt of the Rwenzori Mountains since elections. Tonight we'll be discussing the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision that affirmed the election of Yoweri Museveni. Let me start with the non-legal mind. On a panel of 2 lawyers. Let me start with Honor Peter Ekomloit. Not the illegal mind. Honor Peter Ekomloit, we did discuss the Supreme Court petition, much of it off the air because of the sensitivity and the concerns around the issue of sub judice. The lawyers know how to navigate it better than us lay people. This ruling, is it, in your view, was it a legal or political question?
Well, I mean, it has to be seen on the face of it as a legal ruling. But I'm one of those people who loves the American approach to the state of courts in a political game. The Americans are not sure about it. To them, courts are part of the politics. And the president of the day does his best to influence the Supreme Court in particular. And in fact, I think even at the lower levels of their judicial process, there are even officers that are elected. So to pretend that the court is not political, or that the judges are not political animals, would be really trying to pretend too much. But I think it appears, even from a purely legal point of view, that the case did not merit any other ruling. But I doubt whether there is any circumstance under which the judges would have ruled otherwise. It would be almost unthinkable.
Let me put it to Nicholas, and then I'll come to Hussein in a moment. Nicholas, before the petition was even filed, and in the moments after Amama Mbabazi filed this petition, in the first 10 days, he filed on the last day, allowed by the Presidential Elections Act. I think Section 59? Yes, Section 59 of the Presidential Elections Act. People in different fora discussed and analyzed the quorum of 9 judges, or the panel of 9 judges. And the many people who I know predicted, even before hearing started, that it will be a 9-0 ruling. Were you surprised by the outcome?
I wasn't entirely surprised by the findings of the court. Not necessarily because I had, some opinion about judges. The judges are really very unfortunate people because they can't speak for themselves. People can say all kinds of things about them. But I mean, I'm not surprised about the finding of the court for other reasons. And in my view, the reasons are these. First, I think we need to recognize that in terms of scope of inquiry, and in fact, even in terms of time, the court has a very limited space in which to make a finding about such an important matter as a presidential election in a country. And because of those limitations, the courts are unable to resolve what I think one has rightly said is a political problem. Secondly, I do think that what happened is, in court is so legalistic. It is so removed from the daily experiences of many Ugandans who turned up to vote on February 18th. It was just an exercise of legal finesse. The lawyers did themselves, a good job, expressed themselves very well. But in fact, what was happening was about evidence, standard of proof. But what happened to a Ugandan who went to vote, who never found his name on the register, a Ugandan who turned up to vote and had to wait 6-7 hours, a Ugandan who went to vote and was turned away by security forces, a Ugandan who, perhaps because of the heavy deployment during election day, felt intimidated. That process didn't play out in court. And of course, the epitome of it all was the illegal detention of Kizza Besigye, the leading opposition leader. So the court process is purely a technical problem, in my view, unable to resolve what I think is a bigger political problem. And that problem was hinted on by the court. The question of an independent electoral commission, the question of reforms that the state must undertake to ensure that there's a level playing ground.
We'll come back to analyze the performance of the different legal teams for the petition and for the respondents, especially for a case that was the first of its kind to play out in the glare of the public, live on television in Uganda's experience. Hussein, I know your team is celebrating a victory that you scored, and you're looking at it as the lawyers for candidate Yoweri Museveni, and by extension the lawyers for the other respondents, the Electoral Commission and the Attorney General, are looking at this as a legal victory. But what do you say to people who think that this was a foregone conclusion, that what you're doing there was playing to the gallery and participating in a process that had been thrust upon you, not necessarily because there were many legal arguments that you could make to swing the judge's decision in your favor?
First of all, the political question was resolved on the 18th of February. That's for the people of Uganda who lined up and cast their ballot for a candidate of their choice. That was when the political question for me was resolved. And the majority of those cast it in favor of the incumbent, President Yoweri Museveni. Now, the Right Honourable Amama Mbabazi was not happy with what the people said on that day and decided to go to court. When he went to court, he didn't take the political question, he took the legal matter. So it had to be strictly adjudicated upon using the law. And that's what we did in court. You have to apply rules of evidence, you have to bring witnesses, you have to swear affidavits, and the burden of proof is on you to prove that this is what happened or this is not what happened. And so for me, I don't think that I would even want the judges to extend their mandate beyond what is before them to start answering political questions. Because what was there was a legal case. You're saying that this is the law and that the law was not complied with. I don't think that's a political question. I think it was a legal question which we resolved.
Ona, do you think the political question has been resolved, as Hussein argues?
Look, I think to a large extent, and not just for the side of President Museveni, I think even for Amama Mbabazi, this has kind of resolved this dilemma. Because there was a lot of expectation, there was a weight of expectation on him as a former NRM insider credited for President Museveni's long stay in power, among others. So when he broke off and went to the opposition, people thought he would do really a serious challenge. But somehow the results that were announced really showed him to be trailing badly. So I think by going to court and in a way sowing seeds of doubt legally about the result, there were some of the arguments his lawyers made which one could say were here and there, and sort of that tallying process, they tended to sort of raise some questions that there was something which went wrong. Of course, at the end of the day, the judges said they couldn't really show that something went wrong with evidence. So that allows Mama Mbabazi to then exit the process of elections with some kind of face saving. And for President Museveni, the question, as Hussein is saying, is technically resolved. Whether he won, nobody can argue that now. Of course, there is a dark horse in the person of Kizza Besigye. As this matter being resolved, I think he's also going to struggle to argue that the election is still in contention. Of course, he says the election was stolen. And for me, the challenge for him and the opposition in general is that at the beginning, public sentiment was heavily in their favor, both local and international. There was this thick cloud of doubt about the credibility of the election. But throughout the process of the petition and all the arguments that have been going on, they have not been able to bring one missing link, the alternative results. However erroneous they are, there is need for the public to see that there was some result which was quashed. But somehow that result is not coming out.
Does that, in your view, resolve the political question? Because the cloud that hangs over the election is still there. There's no doubt about that.
I think it allows...
The reports of the observers are still out there with their conclusions. And the presentation of the petition and how it has been finally resolved, some people had concluded this is how it would end.
Okay,
anyway.
It might have not resolved the political question, but it has postponed it as a matter for this election. I guess it has taken it to 2021 now.
If I may respond to you, and I think respond to Hussein, I think to suppose that the political question was about who would be elected president is to take a very narrow view of what I think is the political question. It wasn't about who was going to win this election. It was all about processes, was about the state of our democracy. And then you've got to go back in previous petitions and just see how helpless the court has felt. The court is lamenting like anybody else on the streets and said, you should do this reform, do these reforms. It is because there's a deeper political question beyond just an individual being elected as president. He might have won, and the court may have affirmed his victory, but there's a bigger problem of the political processes and the state of our democracy that remains unresolved. And you know, I can raise a number of issues here that still remains unresolved. Take, for example, the question of the independence of this commission, and even its competence, Electoral Commission, and its competence. It's been a cry for the last 10 years almost that this commission is not competent. The court somewhat mentioned incidents of incompetence, but if you go back, for example, look at the 2002 election violence report, which was ironically written by one of the judges of the Supreme Court. At the time he was a member of parliament. That commission report never saw the light of day, but it speaks about gross incompetence of individuals within the EC. For example, he speaks about Sam Rakojo and said he wasn't in the very first place qualified to be appointed secretary. But you see, he was not only appointed secretary, he's been running that commission for the last 10 years. So there's a bigger problem of processes beyond just the result that Hussein is now here celebrating.
But Charles,
Yes.
let me just say something. First of all, elections by their very nature are divisive. You can't have you can't have a unanimous a unanimous decision that we held an election
And all of us agree with
and
the
all of
outcome.
us agree. So you'll have one who has won and the others who have lost. That's the nature of the election. So maybe the question we should pose is, what are the elections supposed to do? If the elections are meant to choose a leader, if the elections are meant to give an opportunity to the people to choose who they want to lead them, then that question was resolved because they
But
spoke.
There's a bigger question of
But just-
legitimacy of the election
Only the
process.
moment, Hussein. There is the question of legality.
And
Many
legitimacy.
people think that the court has helped answer the legality question, not the legitimacy, because the legitimacy is not tested. It's actually tested where you started from. 18th February, people going into the election. And people have been stretching this and saying, take it back to the entire process. Arriving at the legal regime under which this election was run, the independence and competence of the Electoral Commission, the fair play of the incumbent, President-elect and President Yoweri Museveni, the space given to the other people. And those are some of the answers I think a large section of the population was looking for from this. So from your perspective, do you think both the legality and legitimacy questions are resolved for now?
Now, assuming after the election we had some of the candidates congratulate the winner, like Professor Variamuleva, Mabilizi, Chalia. Those didn't have. Well, the Honorable Mbabazi is in that category, so I don't know why we should laugh about them. But so supposing Dr. Kizza Besigye had also congratulated the winner, would it have made it legitimate? In my
what do you
view,
think?
I will answer it.
Yes.
In my view, I think what the whole discussion about the outcome of the election or the win of President Museveni not being legitimate is a question of dishonesty. It's a question of dishonesty on the part of those who lost. They are just bad losers. If for example, Honor has raised a point, Colonel Kizza Besigye says, I won. He won with what? Where are the numbers? Did he win on 18th? Which win is he talking about? He's not giving us any numbers. FDC as a party is not, and he was a flag bearer. FDC as a party.
If you
No,
could
that's-
free,
that-
if you
that
could
is
free
the
him to
point.
give his numbers.
No, it's
Let
not.
him make his point.
Maybe
Let
he's
him
not
make
been
his
able
point.
to give the numbers because he's
Because
detained
this
in
is
his
not
house.
about Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye was a flag bearer of a fully fledged political party.
And
Just a second.
would
And
you
that party is functional.
would you discount the fact, Hussein, that that party was raided on the 19th of February at its headquarters, where it was trying to put together its numbers? That its members, its officials rather, in Mbarara were raided and arrested when they were putting together their affidavits.
So-
and that
so
Colonel
the
Dr.
national-
Just a moment. And that Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye has been a prisoner in his house for now the last 45 days. I think the IGP only announced on Friday that they were letting him go.
So the FDC National Talent Center was in Mbarara.
At Najanakumbi.
Yeah, but the election was countrywide.
Yes.
And that's why I keep going to the question of dishonesty. For example, during this petition, we put before court 28,010 declaration of results forms in that court. Those forms are signed by returning officers and candidates' agents. Sometimes some candidates didn't have agents in certain polling stations, others had. But there is no single DRA form that is not signed by at least 2 or more agents. So even this audit that Dr. Besigye is talking about, even if he used the results that are in the court themselves and compared with his.
So as far as you're concerned, you're home and dry now.
Yes, we are. But I thought later I would give my view about what is happening right now. We don't want to go on shouting on the streets how we have won and so on, because there is a country to govern.
Mm.
There are people. We 30,
Or the dynamics have
It's not
changed.
time to
30
celebrate.
Or the dynamics have
It's not
changed.
time to
with you.
celebrate.
the
Also,
dynamics have not changed.
also, you know, in this country, we celebrate birthdays of kids, but not people who are 30 years old.
Yes, because you have that population. You have that group of people, the 30% or so, who unfortunately have a leader who is not playing a gentleman and is saying that we are 35%, but we won the election. Just a second. And now that you have a president, he's the incumbent, he's still won the election, he still has to be a president for even those people.
Who did all for him?
If I may just come back to
I'm afraid,
say,
Nicholas, we need to take a quick commercial break. I need to announce at this stage that we made an effort to interview Colonel Dr. Kiza Besigye. That's why we didn't have, we had a repeat of this show last Sunday, which was Easter Sunday, because we were supposed to interview or to host Dr. Kiza Besigye. We didn't know that we needed to write an application to the police, but we had informed the police that has been laying siege at his home, and they had not given us indication that we would be stopped from accessing the home. So I and Onapito and Ivan Okuda did drive to Besigye's house, and we're expecting to interview him, but we couldn't interview him because our equipment wouldn't be allowed into his house.
They posted a
danger
apparently, we were posing a danger.
They posted a picture. They look so miserable in the picture, having tea.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll keep trying to answer the question of the law and the politics in the aftermath of the Supreme Court's ruling in election petition number 1 of 2016. We'll be right back. After resolving the legal question, is the question of legitimacy and the political question of Uganda's presidential election of February 18th answered? The Supreme Court made its ruling on the 31st, which was Thursday, 31st of March, and the question now that remains, is the NRM and President Yoweri Museveni home and dry to celebrate their victory and prepare to run government for the next 5 years from May 12th, May 12th, 2016 to another May 12th, 2021. And we're discussing that with Nicholas Opio, Hussein Kashirinji, and Onapito Ekomloit. Let me turn to you, Nicholas. The bigger question is actually not the legal question, but the junction at which the politics meets the law, or where the law meets the politics. And that's the analysis of the judges, the 9 Supreme Court judges who were members of the panel that resolved this question. People were looking at each one of them and asking, who is this? Where did they come from? By the time they arrived here, what is likely to dictate how they make their decision?
Where are they going?
Yes, where are they going? And I don't know if that has actually been answered. Some people think it was answered because many people think that is how they're going to rule anyway. By limiting themselves within the confines of the Presidential Elections Act, the Electoral Commission Act, and the Presidential Elections Act, do you think the judges absolved themselves?
Well, first I think the judges just put themselves in a very difficult position by giving us a unanimous decision. Even if they had all agreed on the findings,
they should have got 1 or 2 people to disagree.
No, not disagree. The point is different that I'm trying to make. Okay. The point is this, that you might have the same finding, but different premises for arriving at those findings. Each of those judges, I think all this country, a detailed reasoned decision for their finding.
But they're going to provide that.
Which is coming in
to just all of them sign one decision and say they all agree in the same manner, in the same way of reasoning is unfair. I think they owe this country a detailed reasoned decision, both as judges but also just as lawyers. It's unfair for the lawyers who put before them volumes and volumes of authorities, of evidence, for them not to exercise their mind in evaluating this evidence and giving us the basis of their premise. So I hope that after 90 days, each one of those individuals who sat there will give us a detailed decision. If they don't do that, it will be a disservice. But also I think that, just to respond to Hussein, that, I don't want to call people bad losers. I think that I can't do. But I think that even if you're a winner, you don't have to deal with the interest of the person who has lost. But there's a general concern across this country from Ugandans that you must listen to. Not dismiss all of them as bad losers. The question of the political problem of this country. which hasn't been resolved.
But the question, Nicholas, that will come is, do you think as a lawyer that the lawyers for the petitioner himself being a lawyer, did themselves justice, and Ugandans by extension justice, especially those who feel aggrieved?
All of us agree, or Ona perhaps was there, that the 1980 election was rigged. But there's no record of how it was done. Nobody knows. So by the mere fact of going to court, however well put or poorly put the case is, it has put this electoral process on record. That, for me, you have to give it for the lawyers, for all the teams who put all of these things on record. So in that respect, I think it was a good decision to go to court. It's a civilized thing to actually do. Secondly, in terms of the jurisprudence of our country, lawyers are going to benefit. There's lots of good decisions that have come out of that court processes, and that people are going to celebrate. But could the lawyers have done better? I think we all agree all the lawyers could have done better. Putting together a presidential petition is an enormous process, and that anybody who even tries to do it and does it to the very end has to be applauded. We cannot condemn the lawyers for their show in court. All of them had bad moments. They had bad moments where people pulled out handkerchiefs and were wiping sweat off their foreheads. I think that all of us learn that we can do better in this petition, both the petitioners and the respondents. I'll be very slow to condemn my learned colleagues for their performance, because I also know that they worked under very difficult circumstances. They were constrained by resources, constrained by time, and the allegations of intimidation, allegations of interferences, allegations of lawyers' offices being broken into. All of this put together made their work just monumental task.
Yes, someone would argue and say that's piling on the excuses, because you don't go to run for president if you're not ready to run for president. And especially if you're running in a country that you know that you've been a part of. Kizza Besigye, for example, went to court in 2001, went to court again in 2006, decided not to go to court in 2011, was reluctant to go to court in 2016. Yes, he was subjected to a lot of restrictions. 2016, he was confined to his house to be able to put up a credible, to even think about putting up a petition. But for the person of Mama Mbabazi and his legal team, even lay people say, what went wrong?
Well, I don't think anything went wrong, Charles. I think that people who are blaming the lawyers have no idea what the lawyers had to do to put together this petition and the limitations they had. I'll be very slow in condemning my learned colleagues for their performance, even very slow to condemn the petitioners. I would never do that because I understand the difficulties that they went through. But that said, Charles,
would you be quick then to applaud the defense team?
All of them in that court deserve a standing ovation from this country for their contribution to the jurisprudence and the policies of this country. I think that all of them did a good job. But I think that what is, in my view, more important is not to look at the individual failings of lawyers or the hard moments the lawyers had, but to look at the bigger picture, that putting this petition together was good for this country, it was good for our jurisprudence, and the lawyers and the court system will benefit from it immensely.
I wanted to put this question to Nicholas, but I'll put it to you, to you, Hussein.
He's my friend.
After the 2001 and 2006 decisions of the Supreme Court, how much does the 2016 add to the jurisprudence of this country? Given that same conclusion, the difference between the other ones is that you had some dissenters in both 2001 and 2006, and the whole bench saying there were non-compliance with significant portions of the law, which doesn't come out as well in this particular petition.
Let me first attempt to make a reaction to what Nicholas was saying. You see, let's understand what court is supposed to do when a petition is brought to it. What the law, what the Constitution requires the court to do is to inquire into that petition. That's what the court does. It cannot go outside that petition. And we made that point because there was an attempt to try to drag the court out of the law, like it is being suggested here, to look at other things. But the law asks, it commands the court to only inquire into the petition. So, the court can only inquire into the petition that has been brought the way it has been brought. That petition that the Honorable Mbabazi brought in court, shambolic as it were, is what the court had to look into. Let's first begin from there. Secondly, the petition is always accompanied by an affidavit in support by the petitioner. So in this case, you had the affidavit of the Right Honorable Mbabazi. This is before the alleged break-ins into lawyers' offices, which was unfortunate. But this was before the alleged break-ins. That affidavit itself was incomplete. The petitioner was saying, my petition is being accompanied by so many 100 affidavits as attached, and a list of witnesses attached. So many documents attached as annexure A, annex. I don't want to use technical language for our viewers. But they were saying this affidavit, this petition is accompanied by over 100 affidavits.
And there was zero.
When the lawyers of the petitioner went to serve the president, we raised this to them. The petition, the affidavit is incomplete. It doesn't have these annexures. And we were given several excuses. Maybe I've forgotten them in the car, then they're in the office, then I will give it to you. As lawyers, we are colleagues. So we told the president, you can't sign. You accept, and he received it in protest. And then they said they would bring them. By the time 3-4 days after when we went to court, they still hadn't brought these documents. We raised it before the court and said, there are these documents that are supposed to be attached to this petition. They are not there. And the court asked them, and the lawyers for the petitioner said, we are going to provide them as soon. So the court gave them an order to provide those documents by close of business. By close of business, we didn't have them. 2 days later, we go back to court, we still don't have them. And because, you see, I want people to understand one thing. There is an impression which has been created that the reason these were not there was because they were stolen from the offices. But I'm saying that at the time he filed the petition, he said these affidavits are here with me.
But Hussein,
and they were not there.
That's why you're trying to confine yourself within the legal discussion outside the politics. That outside the politics, lawyers of Mbabazi, what a coincidence that only the chambers of Mbabazi's lawyers get broken into at the time they're handling a critical petition before the Supreme Court.
You see,
Number two, that you were actually playing in the legal, in the legal line at the same time doing the politics, and the allegations that went to court about this petition, intimidation, bribery, that all these things are actually still playing out even when the petition was being had.
Yeah, but Charles,
Yes.
let's be honest to ourselves and to the viewers. When the lawyers, the first time we went for the scheduling conference, Asuman Basalirwa said there is a number of about, I think, was it 12 or 15 witnesses who had been arrested at the Right Honorable Mbabazi's residence in Kololo, and that they had come to swear affidavits. The court actually directed the Attorney General to go and ensure that these people are either held lawfully, and if it is unlawful, they should be released.
And they were released without.
They were not there. That was not there.
The lawyers came back to the lawyers came back to court and said their people had been released.
You see the problem.
The AG didn't protest.
Yes, and the AG didn't protest.
We actually protested.
The AG, you might have
We
protested.
actually no. The Attorney General protested. It is on record. The Attorney General protested and even asked the court to reprimand the lawyer for telling lies. And the Chief Justice actually said the Law Society and the Uganda Law Society and the Law Council can take remedial steps towards his conduct, because it was very, very unprofessional to tell lies openly to court. It was not there. It was a lie.
So the whole petition, the whole petition, its hearing from both sides was a farce. What would you say?
You see, for me, Charles.
Yes.
Well,
yeah, I know. So that's why I don't want to talk about the lawyers more. Let me just talk about the petition. The Right Honorable Mbabazi is a lawyer, a former Attorney General of this country. when he put together that petition, in its form, the way it appeared, and whatever supporting evidence, if at all, that it was, and he presented it to that court, what did he expect that court to do? And this is why I find people like my brother Nicholas being dishonest, because he says, at least you see, if they had had a decision of five judges are saying it is okay and 4 are saying
I think
it
you
is not.
misconstrued my point.
Yeah,
I didn't say that. I'm not asking for dissent.
No, you are saying the problem is there is a problem of having a unanimous decision.
No, I'm saying they should give us a
No,
reason.
he said the reason for the
No, that will come. They said
I'm
in
not
90
asking for
days.
dissent. I didn't say dissent.
They said in 90. We can talk about that after 3 months, because they said in 90 days we'll have a full decision, a full detailed. But when you bring a petition of that nature, you people televise this petition live. You saw lawyers of the petitioner withdrawing allegations they had made against the first respondent. They withdrew most of the evidence they had sort of brought in court. They withdrew. What did you want the court to do? The court was left with nothing but to dismiss the petition.
What you're watching with me, we're lay people.
He's very animated about this.
No, I mean,
Well,
I'm sorry, but this is what happened.
I was watching and yes, those withdrawals, but I can also see there was a lot of pressure for them to withdraw. I think the
Pressure from where?
look, I think at some point looks like the court felt they had to do something not to be accused of allowing these people to get away with murder. There was a lot of court you call it the judges were almost being told you must do something. These guys can't get away with this. So it was a bit quite. Well,
get away with what? With the shambolic, as to use Hussein's
no,
words.
but what
a shambolic
there are two.
petition,
You have
or-
three legal minds. What
Yes.
I'm wondering is if the court saw that this petition was not technically competent, so to say, why didn't they just
But
reject
they
it from the word go?
No, they have to do it at the end. The trial must go on. The parties must express
You must
themselves.
recognize that Hussein is an interested party in that discussion.
Yes.
He was a lawyer for some of the parties in that case.
So is Nicholas.
I wasn't.
You are lawyer for the amicus.
I wasn't.
Well, the amicus failed. So
Well, but he made an application.
yes,
I didn't have any interest
But
in
he's
the outcome.
on the record. He is going to appear on the record. in
But
that
I didn't
judgment.
have any interest in the outcome of the election. You know, in the same way Hussein
Of the
has.
petition.
Of the petition, in the same way Hussein has. But the point is this: we can go and call people's pleadings shambolic or whatever it is. It's your view. But I think that really, for me, is a very small point. You know, of saying we didn't dot the I's, didn't cross the T's.
I wish it
The
was
bigger-
the same as that. It wasn't punctuation. There was
Metaphorically
nothing to
speaking,
punctuate.
Metaphorically speaking, I'm saying. But there are
Yes.
bigger problems that I think should occupy our minds about this petition, other than the little bits of, you know, the things that didn't go well. Those are very minor issues.
Yeah, and I think
in my view, really. Eh?
to me the bigger problem is almost what the Chief Justice in his summing up what these things have been reoccurring. It's almost the same argument in the petitioning as in the election itself.
Yeah.
That are these elections really necessary and serious under the current circumstances? Is it, I mean, can't we get into a better debate about the future of this country, how to utilize the kind of resources which were wasted during the elections,
And here's
all
what I would have loved
all
court
the
to do,
contention, even some deaths which have occurred during
What
the
I would love the
elections.
court to do is not to
So
lament.
maybe you need to reevaluate if the petitioning process is seen as the outcome is a foregone conclusion. The
What I would
election
have loved
itself,
the court to
the election itself,
Yeah.
the outcome seems to be a foregone conclusion. So what's wrong?
Yes.
How do you bring about an environment where people can feel that they will go into an election or they go into a court petition and perhaps have a chance of winning,
Can
and
I
not
make
just
an
know
attempt?
that there is
Can-
no
can- can- solution for that.
If you can come in, then you'll come in, because that's the question we need to resolve here.
Can I
Also.
make an attempt?
Just a moment after.
What
him.
I would have loved the court to do is what other courts have done around the world, is to not just lament and recommend recommendations, but to task the states and give the state timelines to go back and report to court on progress on implementing those recommendations to ensure a free and fair election. What this court did was to perhaps fall short of doing that and simply just repeat the proposals for amendments. If I were in their shoes, I would have said, look, you have 6 months to come back to us and report to us on progress on making these recommendations a reality.
Mm.
The court didn't do that.
Yes, you wanted to come in.
Yes.
Offer some solution, you said.
I think again, Nick. You see, Nick is a political activist.
And Hussein? And Hussein?
I'm a political actor.
So an activist on this side and an actor.
You see,
On
you
this
see,
side.
you see, yes, we both wear many hats, but Nick is being unfair to the court, and I'm mindful of the fact that the court is not here and can't defend itself. Fortunately, the lawyers always have to speak for court. What he's talking about is judicial activism. Our legal system, our laws, especially governing election petitions before the Supreme Court, do not envisage that situation of judicial activism. And that's why I think they only talk about inquiring into the petition, looking into the petition that has been brought before it, looking at the evidence and giving a decision in the shortest time possible. Maybe if the election is annulled, you have another election. I also think that the reason we have a very short time is because the framers of our constitution must have believed that for one to run for president, you have to be a serious person. And so you are serious. You have the infrastructure in place, that for you to run for president, you have agents at polling stations, because the story of any election is always told on election day.
Yes, but
So just a second, so if you don't have the agents because you see, in this case we are talking about people who are not declaring their results. If Honorable Mbabazi had his agents at the polling stations, he would be telling court that this is what Dr. Chigundi is saying, but this is what I have.
But
he didn't even have that.
You see, Hussein, the question is, can the lawyers, because the lawyers are in Uganda, the judges rather, are in Uganda, they are Ugandan. There is a big political question for them to resolve. And is it sufficient for them to hide only behind the law to answer a critical, just a moment, to answer a critical political question?
Okay.
You're dealing with people contesting against an incumbent who has all the state machinery, and they're saying he's using this to his advantage to tilt to the disadvantage of his opponents. One of them is confined to his house and can't come out and even petition. But they employ agents, they are either paid off or they're intimidated not to act for the person as. Isn't that what what you're saying, the judges cannot go into judicial activism? Yet the whole basis of these political-based questions is actually answered through some lenses of political activism. Can we answer this question after a short commercial break? We'll be right back. Welcome back to this last segment of the Fourth Estate. We're laughing because Nicholas says Hussein is so animated, and Hussein of course has to celebrate his victory, both the political and the legal victory.
Because you are
Taking it away from
you are taking it away.
Trying to take it away.
And that's exactly the question. Because are you home and dry?
But you see,
Would you say? Let's start with Onapito. Onapito served with the president for some time. He was in parliament. He was in the media. He's now in private sector. Is this question resolved beyond the law?
Look, I don't think the question is going to be resolved decisively, because one of the real issues of the president has been around for quite a long time, and I think there is frustration on the side of his opponents. They have really failed to knock him out through elections, through petitions, so you can understand that frustration. And I think until when he leaves office and people feel maybe they have an equal, someone whom they can defeat, they will always feel that this thing is not fair, it has been taken away.
They're even putting camaraderie in our food.
So what does that say about what does that say about our democracy and the future of this democracy?
Well, we have to be realistic and appreciate the place of President Museveni in the history of this country, and really try to understand that there are a lot of advantages, as the court almost hinted at, which he has enjoyed long from day one when he came to power in 1986. And I think these advantages are continuing around the president. And it may not be easy to change the dynamics until when he's out of the picture.
Yeah, the State House Comptroller, Lucy Nachwebe, was in Parliament the other day. State House is looking for another 70 billion in supplementary funding. And I was surprised when she made a case, in trying to make a case for that supplementary funding, when she said that the president was campaigning and he was doing 4 rallies and we had to deploy there. And I said, what are you talking about? Are you talking about the presidential candidate or the president?
No, the president.
What is the intersection? Where do you create the line?
There's a thin line,
Yes,
Charles.
where do you draw the line between the funds supporting a presidential candidate and those supporting a president when he's on the campaign trail?
There is a thin line. There is really a thin line. He's president and he's a candidate. He continues to perform duties of president. When he's at a rally, he still has to have the same security apparatus, the same detail, the same staff. They have to be catered for, the motorcades, all that. That has maybe Parliament needs to look into this issue and see what happens. But what happens in other jurisdictions?
Okay.
Where you have, but I wanted to say
We
something.
need, I'm afraid you'll say something, but we have callers online and we need to bring them on. Can we have a caller online? Is there a call online? Okay, the line is open. You can call. It's on your screen. Call us and make your question or comment and keep it brief. Do you have someone online? Yes, we do, I think. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, your name and where you're calling from. Keep your question or comment brief.
Robinson from Dinda.
Yes, Robinson?
Yes.
Yes. Robinson, turn off your TV, turn off your volume so that we can hear you.
Okay, just hold on.
Yes. Go ahead. I think yes.
My comment is that the judges, the political candidates, are also Ugandan. They shoot a gun, people are being arrested, a kind of message is just and the office runs that. Mbabazi's office also runs that. Do you think them to give out? Do you think that they can give a fair decision that the country? That's why they just gave a summary. Well, but anyone can just look at that summary which they gave. To different people with different thinking, even in a family, you can't have be on every detail. But they just took a summary because they saw it was a burden, because they saw that the guns are just everywhere, and the people who are just living a slight distance,
Thank you.
You are arrested or you are being harassed, and therefore we are under fear. Another thing, the reason why the crisis of acceptance of the government and the implementing is because the government itself has not followed the recommendation, and the issue also what the government give us for those forms, they just even deceived live publicly, and because of pressure, they brought them very late. Now, what could the Mbabazi team do in such a very short time?
Thank you.
That's why Hussein is just. I don't agree with Hussein when he tries to defend a government which is uses heavy handedness to execute to remain in power.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Robinson from Montenda. Hussein has listened to your disagreement with him, and I think he will make a comment afterwards. Can we have another call online?
Hello.
Hello, yes, sir.
Yes, how are you?
Good. Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm always calling from Kampala.
Yes, go ahead.
At least I'm compatible with the 3 panelists. Charles Mambushi Ampaji, my old friend, Nicola Papio, my columnist in Uganda one today, I think the gentleman looks like a sharing and the economist. For my respect.
Yes, please.
I want to particularly talk about this. You see, in the elections, we had a lot of things to do, campaigning, moving here and here. I want to assure the whole country that yes, we share the fact that KB is a very strong candidate in Kahara and all about the center. But if the really vote is down in the village. And I want to tell you that the Supreme Court had no choice, had no option. First of all, this is based on the evidence brought upon them. I want to show that a judge, even a magistrate, even if they kill a person in the presence of a judge or a magistrate, and tomorrow if they want to preside over that court, he will only based on the evidence brought upon him to make a ruling, not what he saw. Okay? So the evidence brought upon the Supreme Judge was actually, I can say, it had the left leaning.
Thank you.
The Nicholas, perhaps they had more information, though the court did not allow them to be part of the friends of the court.
Yes.
But what they can say is that we can't blame the Supreme Court judges.
Thank you very much, Moses.
What has been brought upon them to make them cheer. But again, when we talk about the reality, I was in fear where everyone, and so many friends of mine in the FDC say, but this they must win this year. Me, I was campaigning for them, I must be very honest. We did day and night campaign, and we definitely won this year. This case against the one out in the position, only two sub-counties, that social municipality and the one sub-count out of 17. For 71 in the rest of the sub-counties, and generally for 71 with 57 and above percentages. So if they said I was reading, I don't know where they read it from. Where I was, we want genuinely. Honestly speaking, these guys didn't do their best plan very well. But I implore them, if they have support, then they should perhaps try their best. But
Thank you, Moses. We have another caller? Hello? Okay. Gentlemen, you're hearing the sentiments from the listeners or the viewers out there. Two disagreeing opinions from Robinson and Moses. Let's come back here. You were saying something before you took the break. I mean, before you went to pick the calls, you hadn't concluded your thought. I'll come back to you.
No, first of all, for me, I feel sad. I feel sad that we won.
After winning, you feel sad.
That we won an election, or my candidate won an election. He was taken to court. The court still declared him validly elected. So in which case we also won in court. But you're still pouring pilipili in our victory. It's just sad. And that's why I'm saying you're bad losers. The Nicholas is a bad
What
loser.
have I lost?
But I wanted to attempt a
What have I
solution.
lost?
If you measured the temperature of the country as a political actor,
The
you introduce yourself-
temperature
No,
of the country is measured in an election.
Yes, and
so
I'm
people
saying
cast their ballot.
if you
The
find
result is the temperature.
yes, if you find that amount of discomfort that you're calling pilipili in your victory, politically now, outside the law, how do you deal with it? Because I think the court decision hasn't dealt with that adding of pilipili into your victory.
I think what we need to do as a country is probably to go into introspection. We need to probably examine our kind of electoral democracy that we have. I don't foresee a situation while I'm still alive and Dr. Kizza Besigye is on a ballot and President Museveni is on a ballot for Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye ever conceding defeat. That will never happen.
And
I don't see that happening.
do you see the one where President Yoweri Museveni would concede?
Probably.
If you were to...
Probably. Probably. But for Kizza Besigye,
What's the probability?
I can say without fear of contradiction that he will never, ever accept that President Museveni has beaten him. It's something personal with him.
What would you say?
But this is what I want to volunteer.
Yes.
I think as a country, probably, we should change the law and say that if you have contenders in an election and one wins with 60 and maybe a second one has 40, then they accommodate, they share a certain percentage. But if the election, if the law is the way it is, that the winner takes it all. I don't see what you want President
Okay,
Museveni to do. Although, just a second, although President Museveni has always been magnanimous. Every time he wins an election, he still accommodates people who have not been with him.
Okay, a quick one. As a lawyer, and given the enormity of work you had to do within the limited space of 10 days, I think the petitioner also wasn't fair to you by deciding to file his petition at the 11th hour. Do you think that the law is fair in providing only 10 days for a loser of a presidential, someone aggrieved by a presidential election, to file their petition, and only 30 days for the Supreme Court to resolve this? I've seen this coming up because someone who loses a parliamentary election has a single constituency, has up to 30 days to file their petition.
I think that, and I had commented on it before, I think that the framers of the Constitution envisage a situation where the contenders for the office of president are serious people.
Okay.
No, let me finish.
Nicholas, no.
Because let me answer it.
Yes.
Let me answer
Yes.
it. Because filing an election, a presidential elections petition, cannot be an afterthought. It can't be. Aware of what is required of you as a petitioner, this process must start at the time you get nominated.
When did you start your preparations?
We started our preparations when we had the parliamentary caucus meeting in Chankwanzi. So for us, we started preparing for the entire election, our primaries, and then the general elections, and then the presidential election.
And the potential consequences. I mean, potential.
Because you see, we already had the Right Honorable Mbabazi taking us to court through people like Mr. Lipanga. We had already tested a bit of what he's trying to do. So we prepared. The president never takes chances.
So
he
you started your
assembled,
preparations in
yes, he
September,
assembled his legal team in time and said, let's get ready.
Mm.
He's a gorilla.
So you
know
anticipated that there would be a petition.
They
Yeah,
will,
but
you
all the
can't
Democrats.
go into an election and you don't anticipate a petition. There
And
will
you
always be.
In the unlikely event that there was an order for a re-election, your team was also ready for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
But that would be a job for Electoral Commission. For us, we are winners. We would probably get a higher percentage. We had a problem in Kampala here. Electoral Commission cost us in Kampala.
Nicholas, let me come to you. Do you think that among the issues that Parliament needs to resolve or to look into again is the question of the time provided to a petition of a presidential election?
I mean, there's no doubt about that, and that matter has
And
come
the
up
judges have
before.
said so, yeah.
Come up before in the Supreme Court of Kenya. It's come up again in the Supreme Court of Uganda. The judges have just said perhaps they need to provide more time. So I mean, if you ask me to take between Hussein and the judges, or take the judges any time on that, you know, I think that we've got to amend, among other things, the requirement for time. There's no doubt about that. But just to respond to what Hussein calls pouring pili-pili in their meal, the temperature of this country can be judged by just the way the government is reacting. They've turned the entire city, into a military garrison. You go to the big hills of Kampala, they've deployed air-to-surface missiles. You know, go to the Baha'i temple and see.
Do you feel threatened?
Then I mean, it is just the reaction. If you have won a legitimate victory, why do you turn the city into a military garrison? The airstrip is like a military barracks here in Kololo. It shows you
But how
that
many
there's a
people are
bigger
causing
problem.
the chaos that is going on in Kasese? How many do you think there are?
Maybe we should deploy in Kasese where people are
There is
being
deployment,
killed.
but how many
are
people
being
do you
killed.
think?
But
You
the
don't
point
need
is,
so many people.
my point is that that shows you that they are aware that there's a problem with their victory that has to be resolved. That problem, in my view, is trying to win back the legitimacy and the hearts and minds of Ugandans. They know it themselves.
Turning the city into a garrison is no way to win legitimacy.
It's a knee-jerk reaction, but in my view, an expression of how they feel about their victory. If you won an election legitimately, you don't deploy and turn the entire place into a military garrison. You don't. You celebrate. And they're not even celebrating.
So legitimacy
not
is given to
celebrating.
you by the people you have won. Those are the ones that make you legitimate.
Well, of course, Ugandans make it legitimate. If
No,
people
but
feel...
there was a contest here. There is a group of people that did not vote for President Museveni. They voted for candidates of their choice. They did not win. Museveni won.
The point is
So
this,
those people
Hussein.
are
I think the
angry.
point he's making is the reaction...
Charles, I've understood that
yes.
point, but I'm also
Why are you
asking-
bastardizing it?
No,
if you
I'm
have
also
understood it?
asking, because they keep talking about legitimacy. So I'm asking, where does the legitimacy come from? Does it come from those who lost? What about the ones who won? Where do you put them?
Yes, and if the ones who won cannot celebrate or cannot demonstrate that they won in a manner that...
How do you want them to demonstrate? They cast a ballot and they won. How do you want them to
Obviously.
And they're in steady progress. So you just go steady. You don't have to.
I keep asking the question about the deployments around Kampala, and I am wondering, you move around and you say,
Go to
wait a
Mutule, go
minute,
to the Baha'i
exactly what
temple.
is
No, but
going on?
security,
State of war.
security agency.
Look,
You
I
cannot
think,
there were people who were
look,
planning.
I need
You
comment.
wouldn't want
I
to go through an
certainly
election in a country
Charles-
that's been peaceful for the last 30 years, and you're like in Afghanistan, or in Iraq, or in Syria.
Of course, Charles,
No, you're exaggerating.
the deployment.
And I know why you're exaggerating.
The
Because you're part
deployment,
of the amicus.
the deployment is understandable because I think Dr. Kizza Besigye in particular had warned of a backlash
Insurrection.
to a stolen victories. I think President Museveni is still aware that the Arab Spring did not happen decades ago. It happened some years back, so anything could happen. And I hope now that the ruling has been delivered, that these deployments will be maybe changed to normal status, because it actually gives that impression that the president is perpetuating really iron hand because he did not win, but I think to back Hussein's argument, the fact that there has been no reaction that was perhaps expected by the opposition against the president's re-election, and that alone speaks to the fact that he has maybe silent majority, which is saying, well, we gave him and so we just keep quiet. But going to still the big question, Hussein thinks power sharing, I've always pushed for this, but for me I think power sharing with the President Museveni is certainly not tenable. Maybe what you need is to, after the court ruling, starting in 2021, if he's still interested, make that position not for elections, and then have power sharing at other levels, where at cabinet, where delivery takes place. Because one of the crises this country is going into is that if the president is running again in 2021, a lot of effort is going to be put to make sure that victory comes. And that is at the expense of service delivery.
Okay.
Which
Gentlemen,
is not necessary.
I'm afraid our time is out. We need to get out of here. Let me just have a last word from each one of you, and then we'll get out of here in the next few minutes. Power sharing, the experiments in Kenya, in Zimbabwe haven't been really rosy, if you'd say, or productive for both teams. So your last word, Honor, on this.
Well, I hope now we shall start addressing the bigger issue, which is the economy, because I've always maintained that people who wanted President Museveni out of power were largely concerned about the inability of the government to deliver the essential services as highlighted in the health services. All these things were raised in the campaign. But those who voted for him were voting for the kind of certainty that has happened after February 18th, that people continue to in their own ways.
Thank you.
So you need now to address the other issue now that is back in office. Those who are saying again, as Wakanda would say.
Hussein, your last word.
My last word is.
You're not going to pour water into your soup.
No, my last word is
my
last word is to FDC.
Not so, Mama.
No. Honorable Mbabazi is going to come back to NRM. After all, he said he never left. So that one is not a problem.
So you're working on that?
No.
You know, as NRM, you're working on it.
You just watch the space and you will see him. And he should actually come back. But my last word is to FDC. As an NRM supporter, I am also interested in having credible opposition. Because a credible opposition means an alternative government, or a government in waiting. So they had taken very good steps to entrench the political party, to have party structures, a nationwide party structure, and they've been winning incrementally, and But I think FDC as a political party needs to rescue itself from my uncle, Colonel Kizza Besigye.
Okay.
He's taking it down the drain.
Mm.
And even for me, who is in NRM, I am looking and I'm saying, how can you destroy something you have really suffered so much to groom and grow?
I don't know if your uncle and your other uncle don't have to answer the same question about the different political parties. Your last one,
NRM is
Nicholas.
still okay. But FDC needs to rescue
Because there are people who have been arguing and saying even the NRM needs to be able to prepare to live without President Yoweri Museveni.
that time will come.
Yes,
and we'll deal
Nicholas,
with it.
your last
Well,
one.
the President Museveni must stop the chest thumping.
But he's
And-
not Nicholas. I
Can,
already
can
said
you
my
allow
last
can
word.
you allow Nicholas to say his last word?
Okay, the NRM must stop its chest thumping. And perhaps President Museveni needs to find the President Museveni of 1986,
Mm.
who is reaching out, more reconciliatory. This talk about crushing people and stuff is not useful for this country.
Mm.
This country needs healing. I think that the time to heal this country is now. And President Museveni has the honors to do that. The challenge is his. Whether he thinks that victory can be secured by deploying in Kampala, deploying on the hills of Kampala, I beg to disagree. I think that we need to reach out and quieten down this country, resolve the tension, and let people begin to feel that they all belong to this country.
Mm.
Because the strength of a democracy really is not by how you massage its majority. Hussein has a majority, but how you treat the very weakest in your society, the minority. Listen to them, believe that they also mean well for this country, and provide a space for them to express themselves. Let them, if they want to go and demonstrate, let them demonstrate. If indeed they are a minority, then they won't take over your government.
Thank you. I think the government will argue and say that the security is for your own safety. That's why they're putting it there. But our time is out. We need to
don't
get
need
out of
it.
here. Thank you very much,
For all of us.
Nicholas Opio. Thank you very much, Hussein Kashinya. And thank you very much, Ona Peter Ekomloy. Thank you very much to all our viewers for joining us tonight and always. And of course, thanks to our production team that stays up all this late to deliver this show to you. Have a good night.